All right, everyone, welcome to episode 5 of the It's a Raptors Ting podcast. I am your host, the Scholar Baller, and we are ready to get down to business for today's episode. This episode will be entitled A Different Kind of Court. And notice the pun, notice the play on words there. But for this podcast, I really just wanted to focus on the Knicks lawsuit over the Toronto Raptors, as this seems to have come about as a pretty serious situation, and I feel like it is worth talking about. So without further ado, let's get to it. So it appears as though that the New York Knicks have sued the Toronto Raptors for quite a few violations, but the gist of it has to do with this idea that there was a breach in confidential information that the New York Knicks had possession of and was their information. And that breach happened from a former employee of the New York Knicks who is now an employee of the Toronto Raptors. I do have his name here, and pardons in advance for the pronunciation. I believe the employee in question, his name is Ike Chukwuwu Ozotam. For future reference within the video, I may just refer to him by his surname, which is Ozotam. But this guy, Ozotam, was sort of like a video coordinator for the New York Knicks at one point. And he was also he was also responsible for gathering and collecting various scouting information. So this employee had a lot of information that the New York Knicks would use to try to have a competitive advantage. And, it's quite common for all NBA teams to do what they can to have a competitive advantage, and we live in the information age. Now, I've done some research, and a lot of articles are saying that this employee was caught sending emails to the Toronto Raptors around the time, the Raptors were kind of courting him to come over from the Knicks to the Raptors. He was caught sending emails of different scouting reports that they had on the Mavs, scouting reports that they had on the Pacers, and just various information that is key to the Knicks player development was being sent over to the Raptors. And this is all alleged, by the way. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm just kind of, recounting things that are allegations that are circulating in the news. But allegedly, this was sent through his New York Knicks email address. So, once there's a systems check, within those systems checks, it seems like that data breach has been cited, and, the issue is being brought up in a Manhattan federal court. And to the best of my knowledge, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, which is the parent company or the ownership group of the Toronto Raptors, denies any involvement. But this is really serious in the sense that the Knicks are also blaming current Raptors head coach Darko Rajakovic, along with 10 other unidentified Raptors employees, saying that they received proprietary information and sometimes directed Azotam to, misuse and misappropriate this information for the Raptors' advantage as opposed to, not using it, which is what he was not supposed to do, allegedly. Right? So it's a pretty complicated, pretty messy situation. The Knicks have called for a ban on all information being shared. So, like, there's no longer any streamline. And throughout my research, I've noticed that MLSC allegedly is conducting its own internal investigation of the issue. This could get quite messy. We don't know what the legal ramifications could mean for the Toronto Raptors. We do know, though, that usually when there's scandals like this in the NBA, it is common for teams to lose draft pick rights. Like, this could really hinder Raptors development if, depending on the verdict and depending on the outcome. So it's a pretty serious issue. Ultimately, though, those are my thoughts. I will just add in here, jokingly now, I personally think that the Knicks are just, do the Raptors really need all this information to beat the Knicks? I mean, and again, like, I'm allowed to have my opinion on it because nothing's been proven yet, so let's just go there. But again, I'm going to ask that question. Like, do the Raptors really need this information to beat the Knicks? Or, it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong. The Knicks have been kind of nice for the past 3 seasons. I just off the top of my head, I believe the Knicks have made like the playoffs like at least 2 out of the last 3 seasons. So they're definitely developing. They're definitely improving. But I personally think that the Raptors could have very well done without this information. I'm personally willing to side a little more with the idea that, like, maybe we don't have all the information yet, and maybe, the involvement is not as deep as alleged. And yeah, like, I just have it in my mind that, but when I think about Raptors management and the global connections that Masai Ujiri has and the reach that he and his team have, I personally think that they would have more integrity. But ultimately, this type of thing will play out in court. And like I said, if the verdict does not land the way, I'm just going to say, if the verdict does not land in favor of the Raptors, we could see some serious implications on, like, what that means for the Raptors as a franchise, what that means for their ability to gather a younger collection of talent. So yeah, I'm not pleased to hear this. And I really am hoping that, like, there was no foul play, but I mean, it is pretty serious, and these types of things, and it's almost, in some ways, it's almost like they wouldn't really be making these allegations if they didn't have some sort of paper trail. So unfortunately, I do expect to see consequences here, but I'm hoping that maybe there was some sort of misunderstanding, and that's probably just my bias as a Raptors fan really shining and showing through. Anyways, that's it for this week's episode of the It's a Raptors Ting podcast. Thank you so much for listening and showing your support. It's great. Big ups to the Toronto mandem and all the Toronto fans. Raptors fans. It's Toronto versus everybody out there. Thank you so much for listening. Once again, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out a lot in the algorithm of YouTube. Take care, and Sayin, it's a Raptors Ting, eh?